Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview a film professional, and this week I'll be interviewing cinematographer Nicole Hirsch Whitaker, whose work includes Shining Vale, One Piece, and Jupiter's Legacy, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to ask a selfish question off the bat, which is about Jupiter's Legacy. A friend of mine, Alan Globoff, worked on that. Did you get to work with him closely?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember. It's
He
terrible.
was the assistant director.
No,
No, he was on certain episodes. I was just wondering because I worked with him for a bit.
he was not on my episodes.
Ah, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of my selfish question then.
No, unless he was he a first assistant director?
I'd have to ask him. I think he was first.
Okay, gosh, no, we didn't work together.
I
worked with Katie. I worked with Katie. She was on my 2 episodes. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get into cinematography?
Well, I started off as a photographer, a fine art photographer, and then I went to film school and found, a love of cinematography in film school, and then sort of back and forth. I went back to photography, and then circled back to cinematography after a few years doing dabbling in some other parts of the business. Probably when I was in my late 20s, I switched back fully to cinematography, but it was really more coming from a love. I mean, I love film, and I had studied film for so many years, and I just found photography to be a bit limiting, and I wanted to tell stories through moving pictures instead of through stills.
Was there a particular photographer that you really liked or gravitated
towards? Photographer?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there were so many. I mean, growing up, I started doing photography when I was 12, pretty seriously. And, some of my huge inspirations were Man Ray. And, even going back to, gosh, Muybridge, and I think I gravitated towards some of the more traditional founders of photography, instead of, some of the more sort of grounded photographers. I think, I loved, I do have to say, Man Ray was probably one of my biggest inspirations, if I think about it over and over again. But then I found Sternfeld and Gursky and, some of the other more sort of interesting contemporaries as I grew older that also inspired me. But I always kind of went back to the really hardcore, black and white artsy photographers, I guess is the right way to put it.
What was it about Man Ray's work that really attracted you?
I think it was just because he used so much found light and found art, things that you see in the world. You find something, a piece of glass, or just, someone's eye, or a beautiful torso, or, I also, at the time when I was studying film, I was really into Horst as well. I thought I was really going to be more into commercial cinematography and doing commercials. I was, super influenced by Fincher and, some of the directors at the time, and they used a lot of that type of photography as influences, very slick and beautiful, clean lines. And I was really, really drawn to that. So, cinematography it's a lot harder to create something that's very refined in terms of photography. Whereas, a lot of us use photography as influences, but making something look like that when you're moving is very difficult, because, you not only have actors and, different types of, scenarios where people are moving in and out of light, but in a still, you can be very particular and specific. So it's a lot easier to create something that's very dramatic. Whereas with cinematography, it's a huge challenge. Like the minute like someone would leave my little perfect frame, perfect light, and go over there, you'd be like, oh my gosh, wait, now they're not in the right place. You know, so it was very intimidating, and it gave me a huge respect for the craft. And you know, not to belittle photographers, but it is a whole other world in terms of how to deal with light and camera.
One of the things that, like, when I think about Man Ray, and it's been a while since I've looked at his work, but I think about like the textures with the black and white. How do you translate that to like color when you're working on film? Can you translate that texture feel? Because it feels real in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, I think you know, there's so many. I mean, there's a lot of films that I could reference that I feel like have done that. I mean, a lot of Wong Kar-wai films, and
Hmm.
you know, even something as recent as Carol. You know, just people who find that texture and really, you know, really take it to another level in cinematography, and you really have
Hmm.
to commit to it. And it's something that, you know, your director has to be on board with, your production designer, everybody, your camera operators, everybody across the board. Like if you're going to find that kind of visceral quality in your storytelling, you can't just be like, okay, well, we're going to do it sometimes and then we're not going to do it other times.
Hmm.
It has to be something that you have across the board. And you know, I think I've been really lucky to work on a lot of projects where the people who have been in charge of those projects have really been very encompassing of supporting that kind of a vision. And it's time consuming. It's not something that you don't just, you know, a lot of times in television and film, you know, it's a lot about getting through schedules and plopping on cameras,
Hmm.
and to find those types of moments is it's time consuming for sure.
So what are the types of projects that attract you or make you want to join that team?
I mean, you know, honestly, the first thing is the script. You know, that's the most important thing. If the script isn't good and if there's no storytelling element, you know, I can do, you know, the most beautiful work, but no one will want to watch it. It doesn't really matter. It's if it's an amazingly gorgeous piece, you know, people might talk about it, but it's still not going to be something people necessarily want to watch.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, so script first for sure. Then the people that are involved, you know, from directors, producers, cast, and then, you know, a lot has to do with location these days as well.
Well, you're in South
You know,
Africa right
I'm in South
now.
Africa. I'm in South Africa, mostly shooting on stage. I'm not shooting anything that is African, to be honest. Um, but we're on a Netflix show here, and it's just, you know, we came down here for various reasons. But again, I'm here because I'm working with the director I've worked before and some really amazing producers and people that I just am having the best time in the world. And I've been here. I've been here for 5 months now, and I'll be here for another 2 to 5 possibly.
Mhm.
So you know, you have to really be really happy to be gone for that long and be somewhere
Yeah.
out of town. So yeah, it's a huge part of it, you know, and definitely location. It makes a difference. I mean, South Africa, Cape Town is ridiculously beautiful, incredible
Mhm.
place to be. So yeah.
Now you started in film, right? Like actual film when you
Yeah.
did your stuff. Now, I remember when we were doing that transition from film to digital, there was constantly sort of this disagreement or discussion about digital not looking authentic enough or not looking enough like film. Do you think we've actually achieved that now? Do you think like you could just easily shoot on an RE Alexa versus whatever it was, the 412 or whatever the number was back
Yeah,
then?
yeah. No, listen, I mean, there's certain things about film that you cannot recreate in digital. There's certain
Hmm.
qualities, but I feel like we have found a language with digital that, in my opinion, equals film.
Hmm.
I don't think it replaces film. I still think film is its own medium, and it's if that's something that you want to embrace, I don't think that there's anything that you can replace it with.
Yeah.
But I do feel like you can tell story and create beautiful filmic cinematic images with digital.
Hmm.
And you know, if you're lucky enough to be on a project where someone supports you shooting film, it's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, it's still it's still the penultimate way to work. It's just not very realistic, especially in television,
Yeah.
with schedules and budgets to be able to do that. But if I got offered a chance to shoot something on film, I would jump on it in a heartbeat. It's just, it's very rare, and you really have to have somebody who's super committed, and production who's really committed. And it usually comes from the directors at this point. It doesn't come from anybody else that there's Christopher Nolan and
Yeah.
Tarantino, and there's just a few people out there that are really, really hardcore about it. And I respect them for that. I mean, because it is beautiful, and
Yeah.
there's nothing like it. So.
Well, it's interesting because it's almost like Kodak and Fuji like perfected themselves out of creating film, because I remember the grains were getting better and sharper, and everything was getting so like perfect.
Yeah.
And then people were like, well, now we can just go digital and switch over, because you can't
Yeah.
see the grain and you can't see the
Yeah.
little noise that we normally would have.
Right, right. Yeah, now everybody's like trying to, push film again and add processes to it. Um and we're doing the same thing with digital too. We're adding
Yeah.
grain to digital to make it feel more like it's film. And but I think there's a beautiful crossover. Some people shoot both
Yeah.
on projects. They have a combo of them. And I think there's room for both, and there's, certain processes that you go through that you're just like, this might be better for film, or this might, be better for digital, not necessarily just because of budget, also because of
Mhm.
creative. So yeah, I'm
No.
glad they both still exist.
Yeah. No, the one of the key partnerships on a film now is the cinematographer and colorist. How do you like to work with the colorist to make sure you get the look that you need?
Yeah, well, for example, the project I'm on now, this is actually my second job in a row with the same colorist, and we actually on this show designed the LUT together from the
Mhm.
ground up. So when we started shooting, well, I was on prep on this show for 4 months, so we had a lot of time to develop the look of the show. And he created a LUT with me and for me with Technicolor, and it's just been an amazing process to go through Technicolor, having gone through the whole sort of start to finish process with us, and
Mhm.
we're finishing with them in Los Angeles. So I'm basically timing every day on set based on my colorist's vision, which is really incredible. And it's a really, I find it to be an amazing way to work. And I'm always blown away by DPs. There are a few DPs that I'm so respectful of that don't use DITs, and I don't know how they do it. But it's like, I find them to be my co-DPs, like, occasionally. I mean, I rarely have to operate anymore, but occasionally, and especially if I have to jump on a camera, or if I'm really busy and I want to, I like, some people like to be in the tent. I like to be on set. So when I'm on set, I'm always on comms talking to my DIT. And, if I feel like something's not necessarily right or falling into place, I'll say, hey, is this good? And he'll be like, yeah, or like add a little more over here, add a little more over here. So I think they're a huge part of my process personally,
Mhm.
and the colorist as well. I mean, I always say to people at the end of the day, it's like 50% of my job is finishing the show.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because I think, like, do you think there will ever be a day where, because right now when you get on a post supervisor, they're going to be bringing on the colorist, the editors, and what have you. Do you think there will be a day where the cinematographer can be like, this is the colorist I have to work with?
Oh,
Or do
I
you
get to
think,
choose it every time.
oh, really? Okay. Because
Oh, they don't ever tell me who to use.
oh, amazing.
Oh, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah. No, actually, on this show, the director and I actually chose the editors, the colorists, everybody, sound, everybody,
Uh,
because we're starting the show, so it's probably different if you come onto a show that's already been established. But like
yeah.
this show and the last two shows I've done, I came on before there were post supervisors or producers, so we had already chosen everybody. I mean, you still have to involve everyone and make
Yeah.
sure that they're comfortable and on board. You don't just say this is who I'm using and you have no say. But 95% of the time they're really respectful, and like, so this show, my colorist is on the show. He's
Oh,
the
amazing.
colorist. Yeah, yeah, it's great. No, it makes a huge difference for me, in terms of actually even wanting to do a show, to be honest, because it is such a huge part of my job. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is there a particular scene or shot or moment in your career that was really difficult to achieve, but you're really proud of?
Oh my gosh. And every single show I've ever done.
Well, I mean, we
Wow.
could say in the last 5 years. If you
Oh my
wanted.
gosh, I don't even know how to talk about that. That's insane. I would say, just to be more sort of general, every single day of my life, of my career, there is a shot that is difficult. And I would say if I ever came to work and had a day where something wasn't difficult and it wasn't challenging, I would quit and be bored.
Or be really
I don't know if
nervous,
that
like
answers
what's
that
going
question.
on.
Well, we always talk about it. It's like, if you ever have done everything and you can never say that's not something that I've seen already, then you're not an artist and you're not
Hmm.
trying to create something new or find something different. And if it's just the same thing every day, then it would be like going to your studio and having a canvas that's been painted for you already. And what's the point
Mhm.
of being there? So I find every morning I go to work and I'm always sort of trying to figure out what I'm going to do
Hmm.
after 25 years. It's like I'm still finding and discovering, and that's to me what makes this job really amazing and super fun.
How do you like to get on the same page with directors? Do you use lookbooks or what's your process?
Yeah, pretty much every single job I start on, I create a lookbook,
Mhm.
from stills and films, and then we do like a back and forth between the two of us. And usually when I get hired, it's because we've found a perfect storm in terms of the types of visuals that we like and the types of films that we like. And then as we start working, we keep finding more and discovering more. And then we shot list together, we storyboard together. Especially like on a job I'm on right now where you've had so much prep, because 4 months of prep is a long time on a
Yeah.
television show. We've had a lot of time to work together, and we actually, because of COVID, had a year prior to that. So we actually prepped this show for almost a year and a half,
Hmm.
um, which is a huge, huge amount of time. So yeah, we've watched, even here in South Africa, we had a theater they rented for us, and we watched movies every week together with our entire crew, um, just to talk about the type of camera work we wanted to do and lighting and production design. And so it was really super fun and collaborative, not just with the director, but for me it's super really really important with all the HODs to
Hmm.
to be collaborating. I mean, on this job I'm with stunts, visual effects, special effects, costume design. It's just a huge undertaking, and they'd been working on it for a year before even I came on. So
Now, how did you get involved with Shining Vale? You knew the director before, you said, was it?
no,
No,
no, I
no.
didn't know her at all. Actually, she was introduced to me by another director that I
Okay.
had met on a show, on an Apple show in Los Angeles. Sorry, there's a cat outside. um, so yeah, this other director recommended me to her, and she had her producer reach out to me, and we just connected like instantly. And we shot that pilot together, which was amazing. And then I just finished another show with her. I was just in England and Ireland for 4 months with her
Was
doing
that
another
One
show.
Piece or was that
No, no, that's called Bad Sisters.
okay?
It's an Apple show, and now I'm on One Piece here in South
Oh,
Africa.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So this show, we'll be done with this show in September, and it'll probably be out sometime late 2023.
what were some of the challenges for Shining Vale that you encountered?
Shining Vale was a pretty amazing project. I mean, the challenge was it was the first time I'd ever done a real comedy, a
Hmm.
straight comedy. And Dearbhla and I, we were both hired by Jeff and by Sharon Horgan because they wanted to do something that wasn't straight comedy. So,
Yeah.
Dearbhla had just done Fargo, Tales from the Loop, really unusual, Handmaid's Tale, like
Yeah.
really unusual, not comedy shows, obviously, like the antithesis. And I don't do comedy. I do mostly sort of darker shows. So they hired the both of us. I think, it was really brave of them because Jeff had only ever done comedy. Sharon had only ever done comedy. and they just wanted to do something different, and they entrusted us to bring a visual style to the show that they hadn't done before. And they were super nervous. And even Jeff would admit to me every day he was super nervous and stressed out. And but they loved it. And then Sharon also did the show that I went to go do in the UK, so she brought me on to do that one too, and was super nervous because it was another dark comedy about Irish women, and I'm not Irish. So yeah, so it was just kind of these really smart filmmakers who knew that being outside their comfort zone was something that would bring them something different. So it was really, amazing to work with them. Really incredible.
Now, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
We've been stuck in this pandemic going on 2 years, and depending on where you are in the world and what's happening, you might be stuck inside. A lot of people have turned to streaming services at that time for entertainment. Is there a show or a movie you've discovered that you think people should check out?
Yes, there is a show. Okay, so I always think about my family, especially my parents, and especially during the pandemic, you want people to see things that are fun and light, and you don't want to recommend something that's going to make people sad,
Yeah, yeah.
which is really important. So I think the show that I have turned people on to that has been super successful is The Great
Oh, yeah.
on Hulu. It's just so funny. Two of my dear girlfriends directed it, and it's just one of the best, fun, hilarious, weird, quirky shows that I think everybody would love, and it's sort of my number one recommend.
What's the premise if you want to help us sell it?
It's Catherine the Great,
Yeah.
and her crazy husband that she marries after she comes to Russia, and basically her kind of figuring out after a couple of weeks, it seems, what an idiot he is and how she wants to kill him and overthrow and take over the throne. And it's hilarious, the whole, the court, and it's like Bridgerton is the soap opera version. This is the crazy, what is it, Funny or Die,
Yeah.
drunk history version of, Bridgerton, basically. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's hilarious. It's a really, really good show. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
No,
worth
I
it.
haven't. I'm gonna have to check it
Yeah,
out.
it's amazing. Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult are over the top, wonderful, wonderful. It's just really well done.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for letting me interview today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for talking to me.
And that's it for this week. Make sure to check out filmmakeru.com for all our latest courses. And of course, subscribe to our Twitter channel at filmmaker_you. Thanks again for joining me today, Nicole. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.